I'm Rozel Poole. I live in New Road, Rye, and I've been in Rye for 35 years. Prior to that, I was in Singapore with my husband for 17 years. And I was born in, actually, Suva, the Fiji Islands, and spent the first 13 years of my life mainly in the tropics, as my father was in the colonial service. Well, I left Fiji when I was 4.5, and I don't think I had any background, any Sunday school or anything like that till I got to my school, my boarding school, where I was confirmed. But when I started teaching in Singapore, I became a Christian there in St Andrew's Cathedral. Well, I did like churches, and I sang in the choir at the cathedral, which I loved, but I kept a distance from these evangelical Christians, who I thought went a bit OTT over God. Anyway, one evening, I was getting into my robes before midnight mass with the rest of the choir, and I thought, I must just go and have a little chat with my husband. There was a telephone just at that entrance to the cathedral, and see that the children were all right, because they were quite young at the time. So I went to the phone box, and at the bottom of the phone box was this little card which said, "Humble yourself beneath the mighty arm of God, ... and the blessings will begin to flow." I thought how wonderful I could do with some blessings. So I said to God, I've made a mess of my life. See if you can do better. And as opposed to, I was afraid that if I really made a commitment of my life to God, that he'd make me his puppet, a sort of robot. But instead of that, when I'd made my declaration, I felt just covered in this amazing freedom, which he must have given me at that moment. And I wrote about what had happened in the next issue of the Cathedral magazine. And but what I did say, what I should have said, what led up to it was, I was very interested in theology for about 6 months, a year maybe, prior to my decision, and I was gobbling up theological books. Well, John actually, he was made redundant when he was quite young, actually. I think it was 44 and I was 40.
It's quite a shock.
It was really quite a shock, and the poor children too. We didn't find this house for about 6 months, so we stayed in a very cold grammar school flat. And yes, it was a very hard time for all of us, really.
So why Rye?
Why Rye? Because my parents lived near Tenterden, and we'd been to Rye on leaves back from Singapore, and we loved it. Yes, I think quite a lot of people live in Rye. They've come here on visits, I think a number of people, and then they decide to move in and live here. My children, 2 girls, Nicola and Caroline, they both live in the vicinity of Basingstoke. Well, Nicola's near Basingstoke, Caroline's she's on the Chertsey-Eddlestone border. They both did teacher training. Caroline, they went to university first and did music. And she now teaches reception children, whom she loves. And one thing that the school love about her is when she does the assemblies, because you see, she's a Christian, and she makes them so exciting and thrilling, and all the staff love watching them, as well as the children. Grandchildren, do you want to know about that?
Absolutely.
Well, 4 grandchildren, 2, a boy and a girl. Nicola had a boy and a girl, and Jessie has a boy and a girl. And shall I say about praying for them? Well, James, who's 15, he's been a bit of an insomniac since he was about 13. So I said to him one day, James, if ever you wake in the night, so, just ring me up, because when I wake in the night, I always go straight back to sleep. So for about 2 years he's done that. I also have a little note on my bedside table saying, James, sleep. And so I do pray for him every night before I go to bed. And Caroline said the other day, it's wonderful, Mum, James he's sleeping well all the time now. Isn't that a thrill? But that took 2 years of praying for him, and also with him. When he woke in the night, I'd pray a little prayer with him that he'd go back to sleep. I see them about every 6 weeks or so, half-terms and holidays mainly. Occasionally I go up there for a weekend, but that's a bit hard on my daughter, who gets quite tired of teaching. And they come down here and they love Canberra Sands, of course. And James, he's 15, he wouldn't dream of going to Canberra Sands if any of his mates were around, but he digs amazing fortifications, and Poochie, my dog, stands there beside him and she makes little holes in the sand. Yes, she thinks she can make fortifications as well. James is very keen on football, that's right. And I realised about a year or so ago that the only way to get to his heart, to get to James, was to join him in the football, because there was nothing else much we had to speak about, you see. So, oh yes, and I've got the charts up in my bedroom, the order of the standings in the Premier League. And you say sometimes we actually talk on the phone, we both watch the same match, and we talk to each other as the match goes on.
Which team do you support?
You plural, you say, yes. Which teams? Yeah, we support Man United.
Oh, yes. You're in good company there, aren't you?
Well, quite good company, yes. Poor Daddy, Doug, he supports Aston Villa because it was a university in Birmingham and he's getting very depressed. My husband died 8 years ago, and he became a Christian to my joy, of course, and the joy of all the family. 2 years prior to that, but he had been going to church on and off, and also in Singapore, funny enough, he did go occasionally because he became very friendly with one of the clergy there. And, it was amazing because he'd become rather a recluse in England, and once he really joined God's gang, you could put it, we had to have a fellowship time after the service, which some of us stayed down there now, and John was always the last out. They had trouble getting him out afterwards because he so loved chatting to everybody.
Tell me a little bit about how it was for you after he died. Were you very lonely?
Yes, very lonely, really, but my daughter was very good, my youngest daughter. I would go and stay with her for half of each week. I'd go up to her on my lonely days, that was, I think, Wednesday to Saturday, and then come back to I Sunday to Wednesday, but Tuesday, whatever. But we gradually tapered it. Well, I did. I said it was causing stress for her family. And then after John had been gone for 4 years, I thought I couldn't really take the quiet and the loneliness and lack of action in the house, and I got this wonderful little dog. She was actually a gift from God, I know, because my goddaughter had been looking on the internet for some time. And one night I went to my bedroom window, where I sometimes have prayers with God, usually at night. And I said, please, God, please do something quickly, because the grandchildren are coming down, it was half-term coming up, and I want them to have the fun of meeting my new dog. So I rang up Susie. I said, Susie, or maybe I'd rung a day or two before, are you still looking? Anyway, next morning she rang up and said, Rozel, I've got this sweet little dog in Bexhill, which is just down the road. And she's 14 months old, and I was actually looking for a dog of a year old. She fitted everything, and sweet-natured, very good with children. So she's my companion, aren't you, Poochie? She's looking at me. Yes. I've got I'm the oldest, then there's a brother, he lives in Torquay at the moment, sister who lives near Wales, she's in Shropshire, and my youngest brother, who became a Christian through the Alpha course when he was 50 years old. He thought it was all a bit of a laugh, this Christianity thing, and he said it was okay for people like poor Rozel, who's had suffering, and that was good. But then one day their 15-year-old daughter said to my brother and sister-in-law, at your age, it's time you kept an open mind about God, and I want to take you to the Alpha course in my church. So being good parents, they went along, and Bill became a Christian, which is wonderful because he's been greatly used by God. I'm very keen on the Alpha course. I'm really very keen. It shows how relevant and exciting Christianity is, and so sadly, many people in this country just think it's boring. And these videos that last about 3/4 of an hour each, DVDs, show so wonderfully. And after, it's 10 sessions people have, 10 DVDs, and before the DVD, there's either, if it's in the morning, it'd be coffee and biscuits, or if it's the evening, you have a free dinner. And then afterwards there's coffee and discussion. And my brother has held it sometimes in his home. It can be held in church halls or in homes. And it's just amazing. And it's so popular, it's now been translated into many languages and it goes around the world. If I didn't have a faith, I don't think I'd probably still be alive, because my relationship with Jesus, he's my friend, he's my king, he's my Prince of Peace. You know, shepherd, that's my main picture of Jesus. And nearly every morning I go and say the 23rd Psalm at my bedroom window, the Lord's my shepherd, I shall not want. And I try and follow him. And he's a wonderful leader and shepherd. Loves me very much, and of course he loves everybody, of course. Never lets me down. And without him, I would have no motivation for living or doing anything. I did a bit of helping in a car boot sale for a couple of years, just one day a week. I think it was held on a Sunday, that's right. And there was a little tent there, marquee put up, and it said on the side, church, you know. 2 or 3 of us went round and just chatted to people on the stalls, and we were given a questionnaire. But one of the questions on the questionnaire was, do you believe in God? Well, if people said no, that was the end of the conversation. So someone from our church actually had the bright idea of saying instead, have you ever thought about God? And now I quite often use that. And what my main selling point, the main thing I say these days, is that Christianity is a relationship, because they all talk about relationships nowadays, a relationship with Jesus, or God, however you like to think, maybe God the Father. And to have a relationship, we need to talk, don't we? And I say, so sometimes I get onto church, sometimes I don't. But what I say is the important thing is having a relationship with God. They think it's a set of morals and rather strange customs, like kneeling down or bowing, and no, they've no idea the joy it brings, which makes me sad. Well, one thing I wanted to say is that one of the great, I didn't say this earlier, benefits of being a Christian to me is that I know, that's partly through reading the Bible and hearing sermons, that God is in control of my life. I do know that in my heart of hearts. People do quite often say, they give that excuse for not becoming a Christian. How can you believe in a God that lets these awful things go on? And I say, well, actually, the trouble is, well, you might say it's trouble, but God's plan was to give free will to man. He wanted man to be, to have free will to love him or follow him or not, as they choose. And unfortunately, those who don't follow him, some of them are quite evil, and some wicked things do happen in this world. But all of us have got sin in our lives, every one of us. And we all have the benefit and privilege as Christians to say sorry to God and have the slate wiped clean. Going through, as I've once or twice said, going through the nothing to declare channel when our life comes to an end on this earth.